The desert heat shimmered on the blacktop, blurring the edge of the road like a mirage. Clint Eastwood squinted ahead from behind the wheel of his old silver truck, his hand resting on the window frame, knuckles weathered, tan like old leather. He was alone, just like he liked it. He wasn't heading anywhere in particular, just taking the long way home from a scouting trip in Arizona. He'd been hunting for a place that still felt like the Old West, for a documentary he was producing. He didn't find much. Dust. Gas stations that hadn't changed their coffee pots since the Reagan administration. The ghost of America's grit. He muttered to himself, "The country's getting soft," then adjusted his sunglasses and leaned forward. That's when he saw it. Just off the road near a rundown gas station with half its letters missing from the sign. LSN Oil. There was a folding table. On it were 5 Ziploc bags, each packed with something dark and dry. Next to it stood a teenage boy in boots 3 sizes too big. Next to the bags, a cardboard sign read, $10, Jerky, made with love and spice. Clint pulled over. The boy didn't move as Clint stepped out of the truck. Just watched with narrow eyes, one hand resting on a styrofoam cup of water, the other gripping a rolled-up bandana. Clint approached the table. "Hot day," he said. The boy nodded once. "Dry heat." Clint picked up one of the bags, turned it over. "What's in it?" "Old cowboy secrets." Clint smirked. "Is that right?" The boy didn't blink. Clint pulled out a $10 bill and placed it on the table. The boy slid the bag toward him and took the bill, tucking it into a worn leather pouch clipped to his belt. "Thanks," Clint said, then walked back to the truck. He slid into the seat, tore the bag open, and popped a piece of jerky into his mouth. It hit him like a shot of lightning. The flavor, smoked, peppered, just a hint of sweetness, was a ghost, a memory. He chewed slowly, stared ahead, then got out again. He walked back. "Did your dad make this?" he asked. The boy hesitated, then, "Yeah." "What's his name?" The boy's jaw tensed. "Earl Mahoney." Clint's face froze. He looked at the boy again. Really looked. The sharp nose, the stubborn set of the mouth, the eyes that didn't want to trust anything. "My God," Clint whispered. "You his kid?" The boy nodded, then looked away. 50 years earlier, Earl Mahoney had pulled Clint out of the dirt after a bronc almost crushed his ribs in El Paso. Earl was younger, meaner, and faster than most on the circuit. Never said much, but when a man needed help, he was there before anyone else moved. Clint hadn't seen him in 4 decades. "He's still around?" Clint asked. The boy took a sip of water. "Barely, got the cancer." Clint nodded slowly. "Where?" "Lung, spread to his liver." Clint rubbed his hand over his face. "Hell, he's in hospice. But I bring him jerky every night. He says it still tastes like when he made it." "You two run a farm?" "Ran, lost it last year. Drought hit us hard. Then Dad got sick. This," he gestured to the table, "was our last steer. We butchered it in the barn. Dried every piece." "Your name?" "Luke." Clint nodded. "How old are you, Luke?" 15. Don't go to school no more." Clint said nothing, just stood there. Luke reached into the cooler behind the table, pulled out a water bottle and offered it to Clint. Clint took it, more moved by the gesture than he'd admit. "I don't need charity," the boy said. "Just figured, people gotta eat." That night, Clint checked into a roadside motel. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and something older. He didn't unpack. He just sat on the edge of the bed staring at the jerky bag. "Earl Mahoney," he said out loud. He closed his eyes, remembering the night in El Paso. The bronc bucked hard and Clint landed wrong. His ribs cracked. He couldn't move. He'd thought it was the end. Then Earl was there, pulling him out of the dirt, throwing an arm around him. "You ain't gonna die in this sand," he'd growled. Clint pulled out his old black flip phone. He kept it for calls like this, and dialed an even older number. "Joe, it's Clint. Yeah, I'm still alive. You remember Earl Mahoney?" Pause. "He's still in Arizona. Dying, apparently. Got a boy. Tough kid. Selling jerky off Route 62. Pause. "No, I ain't asking for nothing. Just thought you should know." He hung up. The next morning, Clint drove back, but the table was gone. No boy, no jerky, just the fading heat. He pulled into the gas station. Kid with the jerky, he asked the clerk. Where'd he go? The man, half asleep behind the counter, shrugged. Said his dad took a turn, went to the hospice down in Marlin. Clint drove. It took 45 minutes to reach the hospice. It was quiet, almost too clean, with wind chimes on the porch. He asked for Earl. They hesitated, then led him to a small room near the back. Luke was outside, sitting on a bench. His dog, a blue heeler, thin but alert, rested its head on his knee. Clint sat beside him. He sleeping? Luke nodded. Mostly. Sometimes he wakes up, says weird things. Last night he said he saw the barn on fire. You holding up? Luke shrugged. You don't have to do this alone. The boy looked at him, anger in his voice. I ain't asking anyone to. Clint held up a hand. I know, but some debts, they don't go away. Luke's eyes narrowed. What debt? Clint took a breath. Your dad saved my life. In El Paso, 1967. I was 27. He dragged me off the dirt, made sure I could breathe again. Luke said nothing. Clint stood. Let me say goodbye. Inside, Earl lay on a cot, thinner than a scarecrow, but with eyes still alert. When he saw Clint, something flickered. Eastwood? He croaked. Clint chuckled. Still handsome as ever. Earl gave a weak laugh. What the hell you doing here? Came for the jerky. They both laughed, quietly like it hurt. I heard about your boy, Clint said. Earl's face turned. He don't ask for help. No, he doesn't, but I do. Earl turned his head, the pain catching up. You take care of him, Clint. He don't got nobody else. I will, Clint said. Earl closed his eyes. That night he passed. The funeral was small, no suits, no choir, no preacher. Just the boy, the dog, and Clint. They buried Earl on the edge of the property he once owned, or what was left of it. The land was dry now, cracked and hardened like his hands had once been. Luke didn't cry, not once. He stood still, hands in his pockets, while Clint read a psalm his own mother used to recite when someone passed. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. When it was over, Clint placed something next to the simple wooden cross Luke had built, a silver rodeo belt buckle, tarnished but still proud. Your dad earned that, he said. I've kept it for too long. Luke stared at it, then at Clint. His face finally cracked, but he held it in. They sat on the porch of the old farmhouse that night. Clint opened a cooler and handed Luke a cold bottle of root beer. It hissed as it opened. You think the jerky's any good? Luke asked. Clint smiled. I've had jerky from all over the country. Yours is better than most. Tastes like it was made by someone who still believes in doing things right. Luke nodded. He made me promise I wouldn't sell out. Said taste matters more than price. Clint leaned back in the rocking chair. That sounds like Earl. After a long pause, Luke said quietly, I was thinking of giving Dusty away. It's too much to feed him, but I can't let him go. Dusty lifted his head at the sound of his name and wagged his tail. Clint reached down and scratched the dog behind the ear. You know what I think? Clint said. You're not alone, Luke. You got grit, and I've got some time on my hands. Luke turned to him. What do you mean? Over the next few months, Clint got to work, quietly. He made a few calls, pulled some strings, got Luke into a small rural business incubator program in Flagstaff, found a local butcher willing to mentor him, bought him a trailer smoker setup, and he did one more thing. He called an old friend who owed him a favor at a regional grocery chain. Soon, a new label showed up on shelves across 3 Arizona towns. Mahoney's Dusty Trail, handcrafted jerky from the heart of the West. In memory of Earl Mahoney, the cowboy who never quit. The dog stayed. The business grew. Luke started attending classes again, part-time, between smoking batches and learning accounting. Years passed. Clint would check in occasionally, a postcard, a phone call, once a visit. Then, one day a package arrived at Clint's home in Carmel. Inside was a DVD. A handwritten note said, You said some debts don't go away, but this one I wanted to repay anyway. Luke Clint slid the disc into the player. The screen faded in. A black and white photo of a rodeo. Narration began. In the West, legends don't live forever, but the things they pass on do. The documentary was called Cowboy Blood. It was Luke's college film thesis, a tribute to fathers, mentors, and the spirit of the American cowboy. It featured footage of Earl, grainy and beautiful, interviews with local ranchers, a scene of Luke making jerky in a smokehouse, and at the end a single quote, "Some men die, some men pass their grit forward." The screen faded to black. Clint sat in the quiet. Then he smiled, just barely. He reached for the remote, then changed his mind. He stood, walked to the back porch, and looked out at the horizon. The sun was setting, casting long golden streaks across the sky. He whispered to no one in particular, "He did good, Earl. He did real good." And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Clint didn't feel like a man at the end of a trail. He felt like one who had helped someone else begin theirs. Clint leaned back in his chair, the closing credits of Cowboy Blood still rolling on screen. The faint whir of the DVD player hummed like a distant memory, the kind you don't realize you miss until it comes knocking at your door. He didn't move for a long while. Outside, the sky had darkened into that navy blue that only comes right before full nightfall, the kind of color you see in westerns just before the last showdown. The porch light flickered on. Moths danced around it like they didn't know the light would burn them. He stood slowly, walked out to the porch and lit a match. Not for a cigarette, just for the ritual. He watched it burn down to his fingers and let it go. The silence of his own home never used to bother him, but that night it did. 2 weeks later, Clint drove again, back to Arizona. He didn't call ahead. He just felt it. Something unfinished, something that needed his eyes, his feet, his silence. He pulled into the town of Marlin as the sun was rising behind the ridge. The road in was lined with dust-coated mailboxes and forgotten for sale signs. He passed the hospice, slowed down, then kept going. He didn't need to see Earl's room again. He was heading further now. Down a road with no name, he found it. Mahoney's Dusty Trail. A repurposed feed store with a red roof and a wooden sign hand-burned into the front. There were 2 pickup trucks out front, a few folding chairs near the window, one old man sipping coffee. Inside, it smelled like mesquite smoke and pepper. Jerky racks lined the shelves, classic, honey-peppered, ghost chili, and one labeled Earl's Kick. Behind the counter stood Luke. He looked taller. Maybe it was the apron. Maybe it was the quiet confidence. Clint stepped in. Luke didn't smile, but his eyes changed when he saw him. "You came," Luke said. Clint nodded. "Had to see it for myself." Luke poured him coffee without asking. Black. No sugar. Clint looked around. "You did all this?" "With help. You lit the fire, Mr. Eastwood. I just kept stoking it. Call me Clint." Luke nodded. "Sure, Clint." They sat outside on folding chairs, sipping coffee as the sun warmed the world back up. After a few minutes of silence, Clint spoke. "You ever get lonely out here?" Luke leaned back. "Sometimes, but I got Dusty, and the shop, and Dad's voice still rattles around in my head every time I'm about to cut corners." Clint chuckled. "Sounds about right." Luke looked out toward the fields. "I'm thinking of buying the land back, the one we lost. Guy who bought it let it go wild. Doesn't want to work it. Says it's cursed. I say it's waiting." Clint looked over, impressed. "You've grown up, Luke." The boy-turned man shrugged. "Didn't have much choice." There was a long pause, then Clint said quietly, "I didn't come just to check on the shop. I came because I wanted to say thank you." Luke turned to him, puzzled. "For what?" "For reminding me what it means to build something real. I spent my whole life chasing stories, and you lived one." Later that day, Clint walked the edge of the old property. The fence posts were crooked, but still standing. The barn was collapsed on one side, sun-bleached and covered in vines. He stepped through the back, found the stall where Dusty used to sleep, where Earl probably taught Luke how to smoke jerky. There, in the dirt, was a rusted horseshoe. Clint picked it up, wiped it clean, and pocketed it. Back in California, weeks later, Clint placed that horseshoe on his writing desk, right next to an old photo of the El Paso rodeo. Earl was in it, grinning wide. Clint had never noticed that before. How happy he looked. He took out a note card, sat down and wrote, "To the one who saved me, and the one who reminded me what that meant." Clint. He didn't send it. Some things are just meant to be written. A year later, Clint watched from afar as Mahoney's dusty trail expanded into 3 more towns. Luke launched a scholarship in his father's name, not for college, but for kids who wanted to learn ranching, or meat curing, or carpentry. Anything real, anything you could feel with your hands. The first scholarship recipient? A girl named Grace, 16, from a broken family who used to skip school. Now she ran her own smokehouse stand next to Luke's main store. In an interview, when asked why he started the fund, Luke just said, "My dad once pulled a man out of the dirt, and someone did the same for me. I'm just doing what cowboys do." Clint watched that interview with a slow smile. Somewhere deep inside him, where the gunfighters and ghosts used to live, he felt peace. For once, the story didn't end with a gunshot or a showdown. It ended with a boy, a dog, a piece of jerky, and a man who finally understood that the toughest cowboys aren't the ones who ride the longest. They're the ones who teach someone else how to stay in the saddle.